How do you do, kind folks?
What's up?
Slam and Skits back together again. This
That's
time,
right.
this time, instead of doing something books, movies, or TV related, aka what I tend to really want to talk about as it portrays in the crappy intro video that we have
Huh.
on the channel there, that's
Oh
probably
yeah.
needs to be replaced,
Yeah.
probably more often than not. We're going to dive into more skits territory because I think it's time that we did something a little bit more skits related on the D podcast. So,
Wow.
I know, right? It's shocking. It's almost like you're a human
Gosh.
being and you need to talk about your own stuff.
Gosh. Jolly Gee. If not Gully G.
So, instead of something that we're both kind of interested in like Stephen King or whatever,
Yes.
now we'll be talking about PINBOT, a pinball machine trilogy of machines that has a very interesting history. So, son, why don't you give us a little intro here? Tell us about the entirety of pinball, because there's stuff that I don't necessarily know. I can give my 2 cents on it, but I don't know absolutely everything. So, why don't you give us a little intro here?
Well, thanks kindly, kind folks. That's kind. So let's see here.
How did Pinbot get made? What year did it get made and all that stuff? What was the
Yeah.
culture back then?
The game that started the three game trilogy. Well, I mean it's a trilogy, so obviously. But uh Pinbot, the first of the three in the trilogy. I wonder why. Because it's this game of the same name, came out in 1986, October of '86 to be exact, and it was created by the likes of Barry Ausler, may he rest in peace, unfortunately, and Python Angelo, I believe I said that right, with a notable mention to Chris Granner, I forget how to pronounce it, but he was behind the game's very excellent soundtrack that it's known for. So, a little fun fact there. Not a whole lot known on why they came up with Pinbot. It like the whole idea of the theme. There's not a whole lot of info on that regard of it, but uh, it did very well back in its day. I think it sold around 12,000 units total, which
Is a lot, I'm guessing.
for a pinball machine, that's not too bad at all.
What's the most what's the most sold pinball machine then? Just for
That would
numbers
probably
sake.
be Adam's Family, unless something recently has topped it, which I'd highly doubt. But
Give us
yeah,
the figures there.
let's find out. I would like to say it broke 20,000, but let me
Uh
Adams. It could be even more than that.
and this was the Adams Family in the 90s, so that's got to be some kind of that's some kind of interesting there. That's mostly when the arcade machines kind of started to dwindle and die out, so that's kind of interesting.
Arcade, sure. Pinball was in a very high point during the 90s.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I thought it was high in the 80s. Okay, well,
Higher in the 90s. A lot of people say, as you like to say, that it's the golden era.
well, I guess I was wrong then.
That's all good. Yeah, 20,270 units.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
So Pinbot was kind of mid.
I mean, it wasn't like a record breaker, but it did fairly well.
Ah, interesting.
Uh, I will say I up until maybe the last few years, since I own a PINBOT personally, I've always brought it to the local arcade, or not just that, but like a gaming expo convention that we have. And I've always brought mine because it's like it always seems like it's a good workhorse machine. But
AKA the SFG, if you will.
indeed, the SFGE. And point being that
It's a SFG.
is right. Yeah. I, for whatever reason, never saw any other PINBOTs except for mine for the longest time. But then in the last few years, I'm starting to see more people with them or having them somewhere. They're appearing more than they did. So I don't know if it wasn't popular enough at the time I got mine to see it more widely spread or whatever, but I mean, that's cool to see. Anyway, let's see. The idea of this game is that PINBOT is like this very trippy looking sci-fi AF robot that is the pinball robot, aka PINBOT. So, what else is there? It was a System 11 title for if anybody in the pinball community is watching this somehow, probably already know that. And for those of you who don't know, that is the designator for the generation that this machine is a part of. We'll just keep it at that to make it simple. It's a System 11 title. And what else? It had a notable feature where it was, I believe, the first game to have they're not like police lights, but they kind of have like a conical dome shape to them. Or no, not conical, cylindrical. But yeah, and it's like a cover for some of these really high-powered lights that flash. It's why they're called flashers. So that was cool. A nice new innovative feature there. And the gameplay is fairly simple. Only 2 flippers. You gotta light up all the lights in the middle of the play field to get the PINBOT visor to open. And once you do that, lock the 2 balls in there, and PINBOT's like, now I see you. And then have multi-ball hit lock one of the balls back up and shoot for the ramp, and you get a jackpot. Wow.
Indubitably.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very simple, but unforgiving. It's very
unforgiving.
Yeah, this is a game that drains the balls like it's nobody's business.
Oh,
especially
yes.
Left out lane. The number of times I'm just flipping and flopping, and then it's like,
flipping and flipping.
Like, well, that turn did more like popping and plopping.
Dun, 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 dun.
So,
yeah, I mean, I remember playing this. This is one of the ones that you always bring to SFG, and honestly, yes, it is not that terrible. I mean, it's part of those. It's one of those games that I'm just like
a transitional thing.
Yeah, it's not as it's not as bad as those 70s games that are just so
The really, I don't want to say dull, but they're you have to. I don't know how to compare it. It's more about knowing how to keep the ball alive and going as long as possible.
yeah, there's not a lot of stuff. It's kind of like
Yeah,
that transitional period from not a lot of stuff to do
yep,
on the game field, but then
they're
they
getting
added a few more things there,
yes, they're getting there.
which they are getting there. It's still I still it's not my favorite, of course, because it doesn't have a lot of stuff to do, but it gets the itch going. Let's put it that way.
I got you. Yeah, it's a.
The itch is sort of quenched, I guess.
I see. Yeah, it's a. They were like, with the advancement of electronics and digital computer circuitry, they were able to start making the games more and more advanced, which is why in the 90s it hit a peak. That's kind of why that was the way it was. And we'll touch on that more when we get to Jackpot. But
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, this is it's kind of interesting to think that the 90s was the peak in arcade and pinball
for
history because for
pinball,
pinball, I guess, yeah. Because
but yeah,
because honestly, you would think that video games were on the rise. It's kind of like when video game video games were on the rise and all that, so you kind of think, oh, well, this is when pinball machines kind of started to die out. But I guess it really didn't until the PlayStation came out, and then everyone was just like, oh, yeah, well, these games are a lot better than just cartridge games. So here we go. We don't really need pinball machines
look
anymore.
at look at this disc. Wow.
Look at this disc.
I was thinking about that too. But yeah, uh,
But yeah,
pinball.
pinbots. It's interesting concept.
It
It's
is. It started it off.
it's sort of got that 80s sci-fi cheese to it.
It does.
That's
That's something. That's why I love it.
that's why I have a that's why it's not completely
Toilet.
intolerable to me, honestly. That that and the fact that that concept and the fact that the gameplay is not necessarily completely terrible.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's probably a reasonable look at that game in a nutshell for most people. But when it was new, it was like, wow.
Oh
But,
yeah.
you know, it
Sort of
is.
like sort of like 90s CGI, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. That's a good way to look at it. It is kind of like that, where at the time it was like the bee's knees, but then it was just like, huh, that's cool. But yeah, I still love it. Don't plan on getting rid of mine anytime soon, and mine will be getting repainted in the future. So look for that someday soon. And that's
One,
really about it for the game itself. I will briefly mention that for those of you that are big into retro gaming, the NES has a port of PinBot that you can play. It's actually for an NES adaptation of a real life pinball machine. It's actually pretty good, so can't complain there. Uh,
yay!
yeah, I know, right? Hooray! Uh, uh, then Pinbot appeared on the game Taxi. It was a little fun little Easter egg type thing. I don't know why they. I guess they were just that game in itself has a lot of interesting things going on, but yeah, Pinbot then appeared as a passenger on the taxi game to pick up. So I guess they decided to do that for some reason, and it was pretty funny. And let's see, after that, uh, fast forward to the second game. We got,
Actually, we gotta go. I think you mentioned this.
wait,
We gotta take the little detour there to Dead Ass Taxi.
Oh yes. What about it?
Well, it has a certain character in there. It's kind of a one-off, sort of a side project, I guess, for the Pin himself.
For the yeah. He made his, like I said, he made a guest appearance.
Yes, he did. Yes.
I don't know how he fit inside a taxi cab, but apparently he did. I guess
yeah.
shrink down.
Why was Pinbot? So Taxi came out in 1988, of course. Yep. Why did I want to discuss it. So what?
Sure.
Why did Pinbot show up in this game? What was the purpose behind it?
I think it was probably like a joke in itself that not only would the game developers really get a good laugh at, but the people playing the game probably have seen Pinbot and they're like, what the hell is he doing on this other game? You put this Pinbot robot in the taxi. It's bizarre to think about. But it worked. That game's reasonably valued. It's a very popular one that I own and won't be parting with. So yeah, Pinbot's there and he does speak. He's like, Pinbot straight in. And then you hit the targets. It plays the Pinbot music like if you're in multi-ball. It's a nice touch.
Oh yeah.
I think it was just one of those things where they came up with Taxi and they're like, what if you're picking up passengers as your goal? And they
get the Pinbot.
Amongst all the other random characters they selected. So yeah. It's very random. I mean, none of the passengers have anything in common with each other, really. So that's what they did. And it was fun. Still is fun.
Indeed. I think this is a lot better than the first Pinbot, honestly. I don't know why. I just think it's a little funnier.
Well, it's definitely more comedic, but yeah, the game's. I would say the game is more fun to play. It has what they say it's got a higher replay value.
Oh yes, it does.
It's a lot more addictive in a sense. Like you don't want to walk away.
Yeah.
Actual Pinbot's like, damn, that was frustrating. It just drained it 3 times in a row. But Taxi's pretty good. But yeah, so there's Pinbot's little cameo there, and a few years later, in 1991, folks, we say goodbye to the System 11 era, and we say hello to the WPC era of pinball machines.
Indeed.
Machine Pride.
Which I gotta say, I know where this name came from. I don't even have to look it up, but I know where it came from.
I believe I do as well.
Bride of Frankenstein, everybody.
Yep.
It's the Bride of Frankenstein parody.
In case you did not pick up on that, yes.
And I gotta say, the bride of Pinbot herself looks a lot like Metropolis robot woman from 1922. Which is kind of
Yeah,
interesting as well.
probably some inspiration there.
Oh, yes, a lot of inspiration. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yeah, sure would.
It's not a direct copy, but there's references
Ooh,
to
yeah.
that machine. But anyway, though, let's talk about the game itself. Why have a sequel to Pinbot there, son?
Well, kind folks, this game was, a nice follow up. They were, it seemed the success of the original. I guess Taxi did very well. It obviously did very well, also, and the NES game was popular. Hell, there was even a Play Choice 10, but I forgot about that. The Nintendo Play Choice 10 where you can. It was like an arcade cabinet from Nintendo where you could demo the NES titles. You could demo Pinbot on the Nintendo Play Choice 10 arcade game,
Huh.
which is funny because you could put that in the same arcade as an actual Pinbot.
Huh. That's fairly interesting.
I always wondered what that must have been like. So, yeah, but yeah, successful. Machine Bride came. Again, not really a lot on how they came up with the concept, but the game is a bit more advanced in the gameplay. I haven't gotten to play as much as I would have liked, but every time I see one somewhere, I do try and play it. It's fun. A lot would argue that it's superior to the original, but
Like me.
yeah, I figured you would as well. It's got a little bit more of a comedic thing going on. I think if you activate the voice module or whatever in the gameplay, where you gotta shoot the ball up a ramp and it has to land in like the machine bride face assembly, which rotates, it flips around. It's pretty cool. Another fun fact is this was the last game Williams made that did not have the dot matrix display.
Ah,
And
interesting.
yes, right after that was Gilligan's Island.
Taking a dump without a toilet, but with a toilet made of coconuts.
Plop. And then after that was Judgment Day. Another game I own. But
yeah, but let's talk about Bride of
I'm afraid there's no Pinbot tie-in on that game. But yeah, for that one. So Machine Bride, same folks behind it, including may he rest in peace, Barry Ausler. Big rip for him. He did some great things for the pinball community. Anyway, aside from that, the artwork is a little bit more. I mean, it's similar, but it seems like it's a little bit more detailed and has more of like a NASA space shuttle program thing going on. I don't know how else to explain that one, but I like it. If I saw one for a good price, I would consider owning one, but it's never been like I don't know, it's never been like a a must-have thing for me personally. I don't know why that is, but it's a fun game, and I don't hate it at all. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I enjoy this game. I think I played this game before. Yeah,
So,
I remember doing this. This game is a lot better than the original.
yeah, it's more involved for sure.
Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty good. Honestly, it's a lot better, a lot more things to do and all that. And it's
Yeah,
really
pretty much. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And that's really about it for Machine Bride, which leads us to the final one. Personally, I think they were paying a homage to the original because it was such a well loved and respected game, and people liked it. And maybe it was also like, the actual Pinbot was, a 9-year-old game at that point, and they were starting to wear down a little bit, and people wanted to play Pinbot, but the operators needed something fresh for a
maybe.
reliable standpoint.
I do
That's
also know that there was a sort of a Vegas boom during that time.
so it's that
It was
too. Yeah.
kind of coming off of that. There was like Vegas Vacation. There was, I mean, a lot of episodes of Full House even was took place in Vegas. I don't understand why. Maybe it was because the 70s were a very big maybe it's because the 70s were kind of nostalgic back in the 90s or something, and
Good.
Vegas
Yeah.
was a big part of the 70s.
Ah,
So maybe
awesome.
that was it. I don't know, but
Maybe.
I do know a lot of Vegas stuff tended to come out around this time, so maybe that was also a contributor to it.
Yes. Uh, could be interesting point there. But nonetheless, I'll also mention that this is a WPC 95 title for you pinball enthusiasts out there.
Aficionados.
Yes, that was. We're getting towards the end of Williams. We're in the home stretch, headed for episode 1, A New Hope. You know what I mean? We're headed to the hope.
We're heading
That,
to the dark age, I guess.
yeah, the sort of. I'd call the dark age like 83 through 85. It's probably
Really? I would say that,
it
you
didn't
know,
last long. That was its worst era for sure.
I would say that the
Maybe. Oh no.
2000s was the
Yeah.
dark age because it almost, I mean, that Phantom Menace pinball machine almost single-handedly destroyed the pinball com- destroyed the pinball
It destroyed the industry leader,
industry.
but
Yeah.
a lot of the folks from that group migrated over to Stern anyway. So I thought
Okay.
of this the other day, like the legacy kind of lived on anyway in Stern. So you know, like Steve Ritchie, the legend, great man. He may not hear what you say, but he's cool. Yeah,
His
he,
love for pinball made his ears go.
maybe, maybe. Yeah. No. The mid '90s was kind of like the peak of the golden age, which
Oh,
is why a lot of these like late '90s titles, not the Pinball 2000 ones that you like so much, the stuff right before that. Think like '96, '7, and '8. That shit is expensive if you find it
Oh,
for sale. Oh
well,
my
yeah.
god. Because it was like lower production numbers and for people who are like actual pinball lovers, the gameplay is amazing on those, and yeah, they're high dollar pins. But anyway, not enough about that. The artwork on this game's kind of like it's like a hybrid of original Pinbot and the Machine Bride. It kind of nicely ties both
Sort of like a person. Oh, in DNA,
Oh,
science,
wowie!
biology.
Wowzers, man. And another funny thing, real quick, I just realized I forgot that the on Pinbot how you've got that visor thing that you open after hitting all the targets. Apparently,
Yeah.
that's treated as a Keno board. I forgot about that. That's pretty clever. I totally forgot they did that. But yeah, that's right. That's the Keno board. It's Pinbot's visor grid. Oh wow, the '90s for you. Yeah,
The 90s.
I would. I if the price was right, I would own one of these. I would not turn it down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that bad looking.
Yeah, I don't think you've ever played one. Maybe if one shows up at SFGE, we can
Think
give it a shot.
I remember seeing this, although it might be blending in with
You might have. One
other
did come one
things.
year. Someone did bring it once.
Oh no, I'm mixing it up with Pinbot.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
It,
fair.
although it is
Very
the,
similar.
the marquee is very similar. That's where
Uh,
I get. That's where I
yes.
get. That's where I get my.
Oh,
That's where I
okay.
get most of my recognition for pinball
Uh,
machines.
yeah, yes.
Yeah, the back glass. Yeah,
Slash translate. Yep.
indeed.
Yeah.
But anyway, though, yeah. I mean, I haven't played it. It looks pretty decent. Gambling, yay, whatever.
Yeah.
Does
There's
it
a
looks like it might have a little one of my favorite things. I don't think it does. You probably say it doesn't, but it's got a little smaller play field in the upper right corner.
kind of.
Kind of. Well, okay. I suppose
That
there might
was
be some.
carried over from Pinbot.
What?
That was carried over from Pinbot, but yeah, that's fun. Always a nice touch.
Indeed.
Yeah. I was just gonna close out on that game with that. There is a what is it? The buy-in button? Is that what it's called? Yeah, or extra ball, where you hit the button at a certain point. If you know when it's coming and you hit the button, you get like a second chance extra ball or something. It's kind of neat. It's like a little hidden thing. So yeah, great game.
I'll take your word for it because I've never played it. But
That
any other thoughts? Anything else that you want to talk about the Pinbot trilogy or your final thoughts? What do you have to say for
final
the whole
thoughts.
series, I guess?
I guess final thoughts.
Or what's your what's your ranking and then do your final
Uh,
thoughts then.
I don't know if I haven't thought about ranking honestly. I'll say this. They're
Not
all.
Taxi. Taxi's
I was
exempt
not
from
going to
this.
count Taxi, but the all three of them are good games. Uh, it just depends on what captivates your interest more. A lot of people seem to like the Machine Bride the best.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know. I like it. There's something about it that feels like it's missing though. I don't know what it is. I guess it's the soundtrack for Pinbot is so good that I feel like it's missing when I play Machine Bride, but Yeah, it's also a good game. Um, Jackpot
Yeah,
is kind of. I feel like you have to be a fan of it to appreciate it for some, but even if you've never played it before, it's kind of funny though. With
I would say. I
the
mean,
sound,
personally, I put Pinbot. The only two I've played are Pinbot and I think Bride of Pinbot. I think those are the only two I've ever seen, let alone played or had the option to play.
yeah.
I would say the first Pinbot slightly above,
Oh yeah,
the machine, I guess, Bride of Pinbot.
yeah. Hmm.
Specific. I mean, not to say that those. Not to say the machine's bad, but it just gives me that I don't know why. It just I get sex doll energy from it, and
Maybe
it's
yes. That's kind of what it is. I don't know why. That I
which
think
there's nothing necessarily against it, but it's not. I'm not vibing with it. It's not decent vibes, but the first Pinbot really do enjoy. Jackbot seems a little bit more cartoony, probably more up my alley. That will probably be my favorite if
I
I
would
ever. What?
I would agree. That one I
Yeah,
think your favorite. It's
just
got
from
the
the look of
central.
it, it looks like it's going to be my favorite, but I haven't played it, so I can't judge it. But otherwise, yeah, probably be Pinbot and then the machine or Bride of Pinbot. But yeah,
Oh, interesting.
so yours is basically in chronological order then.
Uh,
Pinbot, Bride of Pinbot, and Jackbot, or what? What is it?
I mean, yeah, but even then, they're so close that it's like the difference is like a fraction.
Minuscule.
You know,
Yeah,
so
minuscule.
they're uh, they're all great. No problem.
Indeed. All right, son. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts are if you're curious about namely Pinbot, maybe the other two. Uh, if you can somehow find a copy of the Pinball Arcade, especially if you find a cracked copy that has everything unlocked before they had to delete the Bally Williams tables for licensing problems, um, which their choice in uh, moving the licenses to the other company was not so good in my opinion, but it is what it is. Uh, yeah, if you can find that, you can play all three. Check it out virtually. You can play Pinbot on Pinball Hall of Fame, the Williams collection for some of the older game consoles back in the 2000s. And lastly, check out Pinbot on the NES. It kind of has some extra features that are not on the real game that I don't know if I like, but it's pretty cool. And of course, if you see them in like the real games in person, play them. But yeah, yeah, that's about all I got. And may
Indeed.
Barry Alsler rest in peace.
Most indubitably. Well, guys, that's it for this pod. What do
That's
you
it.
guys think of the Pinbot trilogy? Does it rock? Does it suck? Have you ever played? What are your
Yeah.
opinions on them? Why don't you comment and let me know? And don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. More vids coming your
Sure.
way. And hey, take care, guys.